And I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Rules and Open Government Committee meeting for January 8th, 2014. Welcome back, everybody, from the recess. I know that some of you got some time off with your families, so that's a good thing. But now we're back to work, and we'll start with the January 14th agenda, unless we need to change our agenda order, which I don't think we do. So January 14th, anything on page 1?
Mayor, I think we have a long closed session agenda. It looks like it's shaping up that way. So 9 o'clock may be
9 o'clock start.
in order.
How about 8:30?
9.
9 o'clock start for closed session will probably work. Anything on page 2 or 3?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little confused with some of the stuff going on with the HCDC appointments, and I know my staff has had a number of conversations with the clerk's office and the attorney's office. I think we need to probably do some more work on that before it comes to council, because I have a feeling it's going to be, if we don't do some work, it's going to be a long and laborious discussion.
Tony?
Well, we need to have people appointed so they can hold their meeting, which is the following day. However, I do agree that we need to bring the HCDC back for further discussion. There's some unclarity on what was the intent and how it's worded, so I do want to bring that back. I was looking at bringing it back in February. I wanted to bring it back sooner rather than later. We do need to make appointments. We could change those end dates so they're short appointments and maybe give them a 6-month appointment to get through it.
What if we postpone it? They just don't have their January meeting, and then
Well, I think the issue is there's a CDBG related issue that they need to take action on in January, and so sometime it has to be done.
Are they required to take action?
I think
or
it is.
It's just a normal procedure?
I'm not, Jackie, maybe.
Advisory to the council?
Because my concern is that I don't think it's good if we end up having the council discussion and clarifying, and let's just say the clarification goes the other direction, away from what these appointments may be, and then you have people that are appointed and taken off. I don't think that does anyone good. It's not good for the residents. It's not good for the commission. Showing up the day, getting appointed the day before a meeting and making a perfunctory vote just because we have a warm body there, I don't think it's healthy for us.
Jackie, I don't know about the CDBG specifics.
Yeah, Jackie Morales-Frank, Assistant Director for the Housing Department. We do have some pressing federal issues that we need to address. We were going to have to meet at the very end of January. If a decision could be made by early February so we could have our normal February meeting, that would be the most that we could delay the action.
So I guess my question is, are you telling me that the only people that weigh in on that are the HCDC? They're the final decision makers on that, or are they advisory?
They are the preliminary advisory, and we have a citizen participation plan that's approved by HUD, and it requires that we go through HCDC or the grant committee, which is a subcommittee of this commission. And we don't have either one.
Yeah, just to get a quorum.
Okay.
but could we take this up on the council agenda for the 28th and still have a January meeting? Is that what you were saying?
I was saying you could delay it, but we would need to have our meeting in February, which I believes meets the second Thursday of the month. So if we can, that would be the at most how long we could delay.
So you at least have 2 dates.
So if this meeting's this council meeting is on the 14th, 2 weeks later is the 28th, you could notice a special meeting for the 29th.
She could, or she could
Yes.
have it in February as well.
Right.
I mean, but that, we can bring it back in 2 weeks and maybe talk next week at rules if
I think that's-
if that committee wants to talk more about it.
I think that's what we need to do personally.
So we'll bring it back to rules next week.
Yeah, I'd like to have that come back for a rules discussion next week, pending putting it on the agenda for the 28th.
Okay, anything else on page 2 or 3? Back to the Rules Committee discussion on 2.7 HCDC. So just having a Rules Committee discussion is probably not, I assume you'll have
Right.
some recommendations and
Yes.
and here's things we need to do. Okay, so be more than a general discussion.
No,
Hopefully
I'll
can make
prepare
some
something.
decisions.
I'll work with the attorney's office to prepare something.
Okay. Thing on page 4 or 5. Page 6 or 7.
Just the change on 3-2 to 9 a.m.
Labor negotiations update, 9 a.m. Anything else on 6 or 7? Page 8 or 9. Page 10 or 11. Page 12. I have one request for an addition, actions related to the hazardous vegetation commencement report for the removal of weeds or refuse, which we need a sunshine waiver to take up on the 14th. And I understand we got to get that on so that we are in place where we can charge people for removing that stuff during this year. Okay. Any else in the way of additions? I have no other written requests.
Motion to approve is amended with the add and the sunshine waiver.
Second.
Motion is to approve with the items discussed, including the sunshine waiver.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Well, you want to speak on this? Just a
Out of
minute.
curiosity, since this is a pretty large item, would this make any sense for 9.1 to be heard after the consent calendar on the long-range property management plan for our former redevelopment agency?
Well, this will be, this is going to the Oversight Board tomorrow,
Right.
and for first review, and then coming back, so it could be an extensive discussion, but that's really the committee's call.
Well, this is a review and discuss the long-range property management plan, not to take action
No
on it.
action.
So I assume it will come back.
The successor agency board won't be taking action. It's really the oversight board that takes the action, but it's to get input from the council on any concerns. So
And the oversight board action is,
contemplate for the 28th.
this week is informative as opposed to decision-making, so it's a later.
Later in January, the
Okay.
next meeting. I think it's the 28th or 29th.
And Councilmember Oliverio, your concern is this will take a long time for discussion?
My concern, when I look at all the items on the agenda, it seems to be the more important one, especially with some of those land property sales might not be, in our favor, or, it gives us an opportunity just to take it up earlier in the agenda and then have the potential for advocacy by the council to the Director of Finance or Department of Finance. Anyway, this is some pretty serious money here on these, on this. I don't see the serious money on any other item, so it just seemed like that would be more important to hold right after the consent calendar. That's my feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, I'll put that in my motion as well.
Okay, we'll modify the motion to include that adjustment. Mr. Wall?
Sir, first of all, I'm glad you're all back and healthy and sound, and I'd like to think that now we have a fully ordained city manager, so we can start rebuilding the organization. With reference to the long-range property management plan, Councilmember Oliverio is very on point. There is very serious money here. For example, one of the properties 15 through 13, which is an aggregate right across the street from City Hall, was purchased for $11,539,633. And the highest bid for this property as of today is $4,250,000. Now, part of this long-range plan is that you're forced to sell it to the highest bidder if you so desire to do so, which means as taxpayers just on this property alone will lose in excess of $7,289,633. I say in excess because that doesn't include all the ancillary associated costs with demolishing EIRs and whatnot. So this is just one property that's for sale. The other property are the baseball properties. They were purchased for a price of $24,413,275, and the current option agreement to Mr. Wolf is for $6,975,277 sell price, with a loss to the taxpayers in excess of $17,437,998 loss. Now, of the 31 properties to be sold or recommended to be sold, there's only one of which that has increased in value. Another property has come close to it. The rest of them are drastically lower. I mean, there's properties over on in the downtown that were purchased for $1.2 million that are selling for $250,000. Thank you.
Martha O'Connell?
I attended over 100 meetings in the last 3 years on consolidation, which I supported, and at no time was it disclosed that if the MAC was consolidated and there was a new housing committee, that anyone who lived in a mobile home would not be eligible to serve on this commission. That was never disclosed. It was never discussed. I have a letter that I'm entering into the record from Donna Cox, the commissioner representing the folks in the mobile home parks. She is appalled at the sudden ruling that no one else can be on the commission. I applied for the commission, as did several people who live in mobile home parks, but I applied as a citizen, not as a mobile home rep for the people. I was subsequently interviewed, received glowing, some of the highest scores from the commission, advisory commission, and got a glowing cover sheet on my qualifications, that I do the walk, and that I would be a great service to the city. Subsequent to that, Councilperson Constant appointed me. It was on the agenda. The next thing I know, I hear that all those appointments have been overturned on the grounds that anyone who lives in a mobile home can't serve on the commission. That was never disclosed. I do not believe that was ever the intent of this consolidation, and I encourage you to check with Commissioner Cox. And I talked to Commissioner Mike Graves this morning, who represents the park owners, and he's equally upset and appalled that this was never the intent. We should be allowed to serve our community, and if there's an issue about so-called imbalance, there's a very simple solution. Just have that person recuse themselves on a vote regarding the mobile home ordinance. So may I submit this, City Clerk?
Certainly. Hand it over to the clerk. Richard McCoy?
Richard McCoy, Senior Commission Chairman of the H and HS Subcommittee. I have to agree a lot with what Martha was explaining, and remark that everyone in San Jose has an opportunity to give back to their community. This is another example of something that should have been brought before the Senior Commission for review and discussion, and especially forward on to the committee which I chair, which would have had an opportunity to discuss it and talk about it and pass it on any recommendations. So I think this, again, is another item that should have a much greater review of, because everybody has a right to serve on a commission. Thank you.
That concludes public testimony. We have a motion to approve the agenda with the changes that we've discussed. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. We have nothing to talk about for January 21st because of the holiday. Upcoming study session agendas, the Saturday, January 18th, Neighborhood Association Youth Commission Priority Setting Session is the one in front of us. I just have one comment on the draft agenda. Is I'm not sure I'm going to be here for the mayoral Q&A closing remarks part of that, so it should just be closing remarks, and we'll see how we sort that out. Otherwise, any other comments on the agenda? It's pretty much like we have done it in past years, although I don't know if everybody saw the email that went out to a broader public. We're going to expand the participation to others who want to, who can't get in the room because we're limited to neighborhood representatives. So that'll be an added plus this year. Anything else on that?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion is to approve with the one change noted. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, so that's approved. Legislative update, state and federal, nothing to add. I think we have the legislative thing on the
Coming Tuesday.
agenda, right? So
Yes.
nothing beyond that. Meeting schedules, as noted, nothing on the 21st. Public record, anything from the public record committee like to pull for discussion?
Motion to file.
Second.
Motion is to note and file. Mr. Wall.
Sir, as chairman of the Treatment Plan Advisory Committee, and since there's 3 TPAC members present, you should make inquiries into the statuses of engines 1 and 3. Now, over the past couple years or so, these engines have been down for a variety of reasons and have said in public that they were to be scrapped and abandoned. And also in the CIP budget report, there's going to be, for this coming year, possible purchase of 4 diesel generators. Now, sir, I don't know how these engines have become operational. I have inquiries in progress. I believe engine number 3 was first to come online sometime in July. And then I hear engine number 1 has just recently come online. This is it's good news, but it's also very serious news in the fact that this process was not reported to the Treatment Plan Advisory Committee and other agencies through the city. This is very disturbing to me. Furthermore, we have a process out at the plant where it appears the city charter is being assaulted by not following civil service rules with appointments, sub-appointments, and promotions. Now, this recent appointment to the person that's going to be running your South Bay Water Recycling has no experience whatsoever. None whatsoever. No qualifications whatsoever for this position. And there is good founded information that they are going to rehire a retiree who ran this program to provide consulting services basically on how to run this program. Now, there's other issues listed here that I could talk for hours about, but this has got to stop. We have to ensure equal opportunity, the highest quality of candidates for the job, and in an equal competitive environment, such as what was discussed earlier for this commission appointment. Now, lastly, there's a problem. Never mind. Thank you.
Time. I think that's the only request to speak under the public record. We have a motion to note and file. On that motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. That's approved. Boards, commissions, and committees. We have the Library and Early Education Commission Annual Work Plan and Report. Jill Bourne is here. If you have anything to add to the staff memo, Jill? No? Okay. Mr. Wall, you want to speak?
I was going to council meetings when the parcel tax for the libraries was first initiated under the Hammer administration. I believe it was Measure E. Since this time, the ramification or the definitions of what the money was to be used for has changed materially over the years. What I'm seeing now is that the library is taking on a new function, or not new, but new from when it was first incepted back in the Hammer days, is that the library and early education of children are now taken over, especially with English as a second language. In other words, libraries are becoming a de facto institution, an educational institution, and a de facto daycare center. Now, with the parcel tax coming up for reconsideration, the parcel tax has changed. I'm not certain how they changed it through the municipal code over the years on what they can do with the money. But this is a very grave concern to me because parcel taxes in of themselves are unconstitutional because they're not equal for the taxpayers that have to pay them. And with other parcel taxes that you're considering, it better be more delineated on what the people want in libraries, what they understand what libraries are, and what they are actually doing with taxpayer money. Now, that's my concern, and I think that the libraries have gone far afield with this educational process as far as their basic functions, and that's my concern. Thank you.
It concludes public testimony. Any committee questions or comments on the plans or the report?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is to approve. Just like to note that we have 4 new libraries that we got open at the end of last fiscal year that are operating, so that's good. We had a lot of opportunities to go to those openings, and they're quite popular. We waited a long time to get them open, so it's good to do that. My thanks to the Library Commission for their work along the way. It's taken a while. We have a motion to approve the report and the work plan on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Those are approved. Category G, we have a couple of events for official
Motion to approve both.
notice.
2 and 3.
We have a motion to approve the District 4 Heroes Community Recognition Event and the July 4th Fun Festival as city events. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, opposed? That's approved. Item G4 is paid parental leave. We have a report from the administration on paid parental leave program done at the request of Vice Mayor Nguyen. We have that report back. Vice Mayor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank staff for doing the analysis and providing us with very pertinent information regarding the request that I made along with Councilmember Don Rocha. It seems to me that the amount of money, around a little bit over $8,000, that we'll be providing if these issues move forward, it's not a cheap number, but I think it's a reasonable number if we want to attract talented employees, and this would be a great incentive for us to offer for incoming employees, especially those who wants to stay with the city of San Jose for a longer period of time and wants to have a family while they're here. And so I understand that this is a somewhat a costly effort on our part, but I would like for the full council to weigh in. And so at this time, I'd like to make a motion that the Rules Committee move this item to the full council for a full council discussion sometimes in February for city council discussion.
I think it would be better to have that discussion in the context of the budget process. This is clearly an issue that has some merit, but it also is clearly an issue that has a cost to it. And as we get into the budget process, we can weigh it against the others. I think it's important to try to restore the 10% pay cuts that people have taken. That costs money. So I think it's better in a budget process to get it in front of the council, and it could certainly be part of that and be discussed as a separate item, but I wouldn't do it until then. So there's no second for the motion. Comments?
So, Mr. Mayor, then, for what you're thinking then is then during our budget process, maybe a different memo comes forward that maybe another analysis of the financial impacts, and then that council then can decide to adopt that as one of the items in the budget, knowing some cost and balancing it among the other priorities.
Right. Our usual budget document process. So we have the work that the staff has done. We've got the policy background on it. We've got a cost on it. We could put an aggregate cost on it in the budget process as a recommendation to include in the budget. Would be one of those items, which there will probably be a few more.
Right.
Councilor Constant.
Well, I'd just like to say, first, it definitely is a budget issue, and we have a lot of budget needs, and I don't think we should be adding to our problems and digging our hole deeper than it is. And when you look at the chart on page 2, it's clear that our employees get 10 paid weeks off a year. That's if they don't roll over any hours. And there's the Federal Family Leave Act, there's the California Medical Leave Act, there's the disability insurance. There's a number of ways that employees can achieve the goals. As far as the argument for competitiveness, I think the charts on the paid parental leave on page 4 clearly shows it's not a competitiveness issue. If we were the only one that showed not available, I think that maybe we might be discussing that. And overarching all this is, before it's a budget decision, I really think it's a meet and confer labor negotiations issue, and it should be not coming through the budget. We have the information that we need when we're in meet and confer discussions over our labor contracts. That is the time to bring this up. If at all, I don't believe it's something that we should be doing at all, but if it comes up, that's where it should come up.
Okay, Mr. Well, you wanted to speak on this? Anybody else? That's the only card I have. Okay, so we'll take no action. Motion dies for a lack of a second. Next one is benefit clarification, returning police officers, analysis and clarification report back from the city manager. Vice Mayor Nguyen?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is another issue that I brought up a while back, and I just wanted to, again, thank staff for doing the work and providing us with information and the analysis. It's very point clear to me, so the process that we have to go through, and so I make a motion to accept staff's report.
Second.
Motion is to accept the staff report. Mr. Wall?
I think you have an opportunity here to really entice San Jose police officers to come back by the ones that are coming back that were Tier 1, leave them at Tier 1 with all their benefits as an enticement to come back. It's unfortunate that the city of San Jose used to pay their police officers and firefighters very well, but adopted a policy of shortchanging them, and they leave. For example, they could go to Santa Clara and get a net increase in pay of $39,000, just in their pay alone. In addition, they would only have to pay 12% at Santa Clara for their retirement. Here in San Jose, it's 22.5%. So I think you really need to start seriously taking issues about reducing retirement costs of police officers and giving them economic incentives to come back, because these are highly trained assets that the city of San Jose put a lot of money into that justifiably left. And when they come back, they should be welcomed as if they were the prodigal sons and daughters that they are. And in addition, some form of official political genuflection upon the elected people is a sign that, hey, we made some really bad decisions concerning public safety, and we apologize, we welcome you back, and here's what we're going to give you. Thank you.
Includes public testimony. We have a motion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unopposed? That's approved. Next one is disability retirement, which I have a memo requesting that we agendize for some council action. And having had a chance to think about it, I'd like to modify my recommendation in the memo. Item number 3 was to engage with our bargaining units as may be necessary to develop the ordinance and consult with retirement boards as required. What I'm thinking now is that's maybe where we should start. And it's clear that we have some problems with implementing the changes in our disability retirement. But I think we could have a discussion with our police and fire unions if they want to have a discussion with us, not meet and confer, not contract negotiations, but a discussion about what would be a good solution that would solve the problems. Sounds a little bit like the discussions that are going on around retiree health care. It's not bargaining. It might be helpful to do that, I think, if we can do it quickly, if they're willing to engage and deal with it, rather than assuming, as I've got some recommendations here, a way to solve the problems, but there are obviously other ways that could be considered. So I think if we can, and maybe Alex has an opinion about whether or not we could have some discussions that aren't meet and confer. Discussions could lead into a meet and confer, but whether or not that's a feasible thing to do in a feasible time frame. And my time frame has several posts on it. One of those is we have a class in the academy now, and I know that the retirement question is one of those questions that's troubling to some of them. And so I'd like to have an answer of what we're going to do before that academy class graduates. And so there's some other things that are happening. The stipulation from the Measure B litigation expires July 1st. So I think I have an interest in trying to move this along quickly. And if people are interested in having a discussion, I think it could happen. I'll just let Alex give us his thoughts on that.
Thank you, Mayor. Alex Spurs, Deputy City Manager. Yeah, we absolutely can engage the police and fire unions if they'd like to, as you mentioned. The example you gave is we currently have a retiree healthcare working group that is members of all the federated bargaining units. It's not bargaining, but it really serves as a good problem-solving forum, both educational and talking about a variety of solutions. So we can use that model on this issue, and we can put out the request to the police and fire unions right away, and if they're interested, we can put something together very quickly.
I guess that would be my recommendation, is to refer this memo to staff and let them work on it and see if we can get some forward progress on it. Councilmember Constant?
I think some of the things we also have to look at is broader than an ordinance as outlined here. And, you know, we have internal policies and practices that I believe are counter to the best interests of our employees. And I know this because I went through the system myself. We've had a protracted court case about the modified duty positions in the police department. We had a settlement on that, or a court order on that, and those are things we need to look at. But I'll give you a perfect example. When I got hurt, I was working in the vice unit. The vice unit had an administrative officer position that was not a field officer. You didn't go work undercover. You didn't go do outside investigations. You worked in the office. But because of our rules, even though I could do everything within that job with the restrictions that my doctor had provided, the police department could not let me work that job because it was not a modified duty assignment, even though there were no duties that were outside of my work restrictions. Yet right across the hallway in the robbery unit, there was a job that was very similar. That was what we used to call the Article 39 jobs, or jobs that accommodated people's injuries. And I think what's happened is, over the years, we have had an attitude that you're either full duty or you're not. And if you're not full duty, you're not wanted. And I'll tell you that when I went through this, I got hurt in 97, retired in 2000, I didn't want to retire. But I really didn't have a choice because the department could not accommodate my injuries. My personal opinion is they would not accommodate my injuries. I think they could have accommodated the injuries, and there were no positions available. When you look at the fact that we have a severely understaffed city, and we have an understaffed police department, and we've talked a number of times in the Public Safety Committee and here about the fact that because of our low civilian staff, we actually have police officers in the Detective Bureau answering phones and doing other things that aren't police work. And we have able-bodied officers working desk jobs that don't require public contact, that don't require you to carry a gun, that don't require you to lift, crawl, bend, jump, fight, any of those things that are typical restrictions. I think it's internal policies that prevent us from doing that. And there are a number of opportunities. And I know the court case complicates things. It's not as simple as just making it open. But I think we have to have a critical look at that. And maybe we do something that is slightly different. And I'll just throw this out. I haven't thought it through. But, you know, if you look at the sheriff's department, they have deputy ones and deputy twos. And deputy ones have the ability to go do any law enforcement function. Deputy twos have less. But they're still peace officers. Their pay scales are similar. I would much rather us look at something like that where we can utilize people who still have a strong mind, a strong set of experiences, good education, and a desire to do investigatory or regulatory work in our police department than push someone into retirement and be understaffed. So those are the things that I would like to see addressed as we go forward.
If I could add, I mean, to your point, Councilmember Constant, I think the focus right now is disability retirement and the change, but at the crux of that is a work-related injury or injuries. And so we would approach a working group really talking about the full gamut of an employee who is injured on the job and the various programs or policies that apply. And so I think we wouldn't limit it and problem solve a variety of aspects of the issue.
And I think we have to look outside at what other departments do as well, because very few departments handle it the way we do.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Councilmember Oliverio?
So understand by your motion, Mayor, that staff will take your memo and come back to rules with to be agendized for ideas, discussion, with some type of conversation that occurred with rank and file.
Well, that's one way it could sort out. I'm really I guess I'm not prejudging how exactly it might come back to us, but the idea is, rather than start with an ordinance, that we start with a discussion.
Sure.
And let people get engaged in that and trying to solve the problem, and that solution, hopefully, comes back to us to implement in some fashion.
Understood. And then did you see that at some point we would have just the, kind of the scenarios to really explain what is, what is the status quo of the current status based on, situations?
Yeah, we
Police
do have some
officer-
previous referrals to staff that I know they're still working on.
Yeah, Mayor, just to be clear, on December 10th, the council directed us to come back with an answer to a bunch of questions that were asked in a memo set forth by Councilmember Rocha. So I think we're still working on that as a staff level, and that's part of the dialogue.
Do you see those as related, Mayor, or do you see them?
No, I think they are related. I'm just trying to move this along because I'm looking at that graduation date for that class, and I'd like for us to be able to say to those officers, here's the way it's going to work. Maybe we don't have it in place, but here's where we're going. We've figured it out.
Thank you.
Anything else, Alex?
And I would just ask Alex, if, I know the working group model is great, but if there's a way that you could get some discussions with some of those folks in the academy to see what their concerns are, because we may be solving, if there's 3 concerns, we may be solving the least one, and they're one that's more important to a new officer. And the people that we typically talk to have a lot more years on the department, and the interests are not always the same.
Yes, absolutely, and we will do that. I mean, there clearly have been a lot of questions of our new officers and new recruits, and we will include, meeting with them and getting their questions and concerns.
Okay, Mr. Wall, you want to speak on this?
I appreciate the comments of Councilmember Constant. However, the word similar is not equal when it comes to pay. Now, we currently have at least one San Jose motor police officer that it was in the media of recent, who was injured on the job, and he's losing pay because of this disability business. Now, the whole language of police and fire disabilities has to be changed, because these positions are not normal jobs. These people risk injury every day they go to work in ways that are not equal to other jobs within the city. And so they have to be treated fairly but differently because of the very nature of their jobs. And currently, if they're injured, especially with the new cops that are coming online with this Tier 2 business, there is no incentive whatsoever to stay in San Jose as a police officer or a firefighter. They're leaving in droves as we speak. And your retention of police candidates, even in the academy, is so sketchy that it's forcing this discussion. So you better start bringing in police and fire unions and redefining the language of disability leaves and retirements altogether, because this is the big issue that they want. I don't speak for them. I just hear what the people I run in contact with. And I don't like what I've seen here at City Hall, and also as a person on a disability retirement. This should also be extended to other departments and other employees as well. But I was forced into retirement for a variety of different reasons that aren't going to be discussed here today. But I would definitely look at retaining the pay and changing the language of the disability requirements, because these jobs are not normal jobs. I mean, thank you.
That includes public testimony. We have I don't know if we had a motion to refer this to staff or not.
We have a motion to refer to staff.
Motion is referred to staff.
And one question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
One question for staff. When do you think we might have that public discussion so less of the misinformation is out there and more of the factual information is out there on this topic? I know you put out an informational memo, but it's always sometimes better when it's done in the public discussion, if you're.
Yes, we're referring to an informational memo we got in December, which sort of gave a summary of the various programs that are available to an injured worker. And then the city attorney referenced the other memo that we are working on. So potentially in conjunction with that issuance of that memo, we can bring it to the council for discussion. So I anticipate.
What's your ballpark time range, you think?
I don't know, Rick, if you
I know
have an
you have nothing
idea,
else right now.
we could probably, in 30, maybe sometime in February?
Yeah, I think sometime early February would be ideal, but maybe
Yeah.
mid-February.
Thank you.
Okay.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Takes us to open forum. Mr. Wall?
One issue that is for you as chairman of the Treatment Plant Advisory Committee and other members of TPAC is the issue of, first of all, the advanced water treatment and what you're going to do with the brine. Now, currently, in my opinion, because of two factors, dual plumbing using reclaimed water throughout the city and tributary agencies that use reclaimed water, and two, because of water conservation, there's dramatic drop in flow, hydraulic loading to the plant. This dramatic drop in flow has two sub-issues. One, it masks chronic and acute toxicity within the final effluent. Now, on top of that, you look at the health of the bay past the outfall, and it is thriving. It is thriving to such a degree that it's very probable that this year that the city of San Jose will argue before the Regional Water Control Board to vacate the order requiring the reclaimed water project, which I have for decades said was never needed in the first place. Then we look at advanced water treatment and the inclusion of brine. The brine itself is very concentrated, as you know. Now, if we have very sketchy chronic and acute toxicity values in the final effluent, metering in this brine is going to shift it to be in violation, causing taxpayers to have to pay for something that is not directly related to the sewer service and use charge, because the advanced water treatment facility is a water utility. Even the director of ESD mentioned you have to come up with a different funding scenario for AWT, as I have for decades have said you should have done so in the beginning. So you've got some serious problems on how you stick your hand into the taxpayers' wallets, because eventually somebody's going to say, hey, stop doing this. And I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes, a number of years ago, the city attorney advised the city of San Jose to remove the sexual orientation box on the applications for boards and commissions. And it was removed. There is another concern I have with the HCDC, which is the income threshold. There is one position on that commission where you're supposed to be, quote, low income. But that question was not on the application, nor was it asked during the interview. And I have attempted to get from the city clerk what the definition of low income is, and she has said that she doesn't know, she's struggling to get it. And yet one of the appointments was based on low income, which we don't even know what low income means. My other concern is if somebody says they make $25,000 a year, what kind of proof is the city going to take to verify that they're telling the truth in order to get the low income seat? My third concern is I don't even know if this is legal. If people can be struck off a commission because they, quote, make too much money. So this is another area that I would encourage you to look into because it's very troubling. Thank you.
That concludes the open forum, concludes our meeting. We're adjourned.